Okay, well, we're going to have a bit of a chat now. There is a new book that has come out by a very, very inspirational Australian woman, and her name is Heidi Anderson. And you may well know Heidi because she was a former radio host here on a breakfast radio show quite a few years ago, and it is called Drunk on Confidence. Now, she's written this book because it's no secret, but she did have a breakdown when she was on air, and she confessed to actually having a lot of anxiety. And then there was a deluge of listeners that contacted her saying, Heidi, we feel exactly the same. And she sort of thought she'd been keeping it in for more than a decade, time to front up, time to just say it as it is. And she certainly has. And she's launching her book, Drunk on Confidence, and we're delighted to welcome her to Radio 6PR this afternoon. Heidi, good afternoon.
Hello, Carly. How are you?
I'm really well. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you. I'm currently in Bondi, and I have just stripped off on the beach this morning in my bikini with 30 women launching the book, Drunk on Confidence. So it's been awesome.
It has indeed, and look, you're famous for that as well. Now, this was a pretty tough book for you to write, a very necessary book in our book market, because you've actually done it to empower and give body confidence to women to accept themselves and other women for who they are, but also for men out there as well. Explain a bit more for us.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting thing. I think I speak a lot to women because that's who follow me on Instagram. But when I launched this book, I have a lot of men around me, my dad, my husband, my son, and I've got some really epic mates that are in, high-powered, high-profile sports teams. And I sent the book to them, and they really felt like they understood themselves and their body demons, and also the mental health behind their partners and their sisters. And I think, you spoke about when I spoke about my anxiety on air back when I was working at 92, and the amount of men actually that contacted me to say thank you because they finally understood their partners and their mental health battles was unbelievable. And so, I did write this book originally thinking I was writing it for women, but it's crazy how men are picking it up and feeling seen themselves and also understanding their loved ones around them.
Yeah, and I think it's important because you are such a larger-than-life character, but you actually very candidly chart your path from being very lost and anxious to being confident and sort of self-assured. You're a mum now. You've got a little boy, but you actually say that you felt sadness delving into your past during the writing process because you've had to own some of your own mistakes, and that's hard for anyone to do.
Yeah, that's been a big thing, Carolee. Just even the last few weeks, like I was on Studio 10 this week in Sydney, speaking about my book, doing radio interviews. You really have to reflect. And when I was going back and writing the book, that was part of the process as well, because I think when you suffer with mental health or someone around you, sometimes you do act out of character, and some of your behaviors aren't really you. Sometimes it can be the mental health that's going on, and I think I've had to really look at myself. And I think especially leaving radio, my identity shift, becoming a new mum, having my partner, what he goes through sometimes by, I guess you could say caring for me at times and supporting me as someone who has been battling anxiety and, body image issues for a long time.
Now, I read the book. I read it in one sitting. I thought it was absolutely terrific. But it's interesting, as you say, your old identity, people knew you on radio, but you actually said that you lost friendships in the process. You said that there were people who literally overnight stopped interacting with you when you left radio.
Yeah, and this is the thing, I think anyone who kind of, when you're in a job or, one door closes, I think you think you're going to be friends with everyone. And I thought everyone was going to come with me, but I also as well was a different person. You know what I mean? I was going through my own journey of becoming a mum and, experiencing anxiety at times, sleep deprivation. But it's funny, I think you notice the people that don't surround you anymore, and the text messages kind of dried up. As I say, the likes on Instagram, which sounds so silly, but, there were people that's how, they showed their support. But yeah, I think it does happen when we venture on a new path, and some people don't understand your path, or they don't support your path, or, what you're going through. And I think that can be really hard for anyone.
And as you said, it's not about, pretending that self-doubt doesn't exist. You say that the trick is not giving into it. I found your book amazing because, as you say, you're at a place in your life now where you were high profile, but you're almost wanting to save another generation of young women and young men from making the mistakes that you did, as in, if they accepted themselves when they were young, they can go right through to their 40s and 50s with that self-confidence that you've really only just discovered. And it reminded me of something, Dame Emma Thompson, who's now 63 years old, very famous British actress. Her movie came out this year, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. She's been in Matilda the musical. She wrote a letter when she was 50 to her 16-year-old self. And she wrote, the top 2 tips are, don't ever, ever, ever bother to go on a diet, because, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, just eat regularly and you'll end up the same size anyway. Just drop those thoughts right now. And the second tip that she gave was, when he says he doesn't love you, believe him, he doesn't. And then she says, that's it. All the other mistakes you make are worth their weight in gold. I love you, 16-year-old M, from M aged 50. And I read it, and I actually read that just after your book, and I thought, all those things, we all look back and we just think, what were we even worried about?
Yes. And I think I love that you shared that, because I think that's definitely a conversation I'm having with parents that are reading my book that have got teenage kids, like men and women. And, you know, I think it's really educating ourselves and like thinking about those things that, like, what would we tell our children, or what would we tell our younger selves? And yeah, for me, I know I would probably tell myself to be kind to myself and kind to others. And that's how I really raised my son. And, you know, I think really understand the voices in your head, the inner critic, which she kind of talks about in her letter. And I think that's something we don't really, you know, talk much about in society, the inner critics that we all have. And in my book, you meet all the different inner critics in my mind that I've named and associated. And I think just having a drink with a neighbour the other day who's got teenage daughters, he was saying, thank you. Like, I finally understand what these girls are going through with this generation. So, yeah.
And some of them, as I said, some of those voices are anxious Annie, self-loathing Sally, people-pleasing Polly, negative Nellie. And when you read your book, Drunk on Confidence, a memoir by Heidi Anderson, you read them and we all actually stop and we think, gee whiz, we've heard those voices before in our own lives. Wow, here it is in print. And when you read something in print, it's very powerful. Before I let you go, because I know that you're doing your book launches this afternoon as well, do you have any tips you can share for people dealing with a lack of body confidence right at this moment, right here, right now?
Yeah, so I talk a lot about, you know, unleashing your inner champagne confidence. So, you know, you don't have to be drunk on alcohol to get your confidence. And so I think a big thing for me, and, you know, just me speaking out on the radio all those years ago, the very first thing I say to anyone is, like, speak up. Start to be vulnerable. Like, what are you afraid of? And one book that I've been reading my son, Memphis, has been, you know, we're going on a bear hunt. We're off to catch a bear. And, you know, I'm not scared. And, you know, when you think about fear, they say in the book, you can't go over it. You can't go under it. You've got to go through it. And so once you start to speak up and voice the fear that it might be judgment of what other people think of you, it might be your own judgment of looking at yourself in the mirror, you know, once you speak up, you kind of go, okay, well, now I can face this fear. And that's what I teach people to do. So the second thing would be expose yourself to that fear. So for me, I was petrified of wearing a bikini for years, and I was worried what people thought about my arms. And that's why now I do these women empowerment photo shoots on the beach, just like I did this morning here in Bondi. So I'm exposing myself to not just the judgment of myself, but others, because for years I worried about what people were thinking. And then the third thing that I talk about in my book, which is how I kind of wrap up the book, is make those 1% changes. How can you make a 1% change each day? And I think this is a really important thing for anyone who's got a child, you know, a partner or someone. How can we help them, especially suffering from mental health or body image issues or whatever? How can we start to get them to make a 1% change every single day? And for me, it started off as meditation. It started off me understanding the voices in my head a little bit more. It was like speaking up, letting people know that I didn't like myself as much as what maybe I portrayed on the radio, you know, with that confident, bubbly self. So those would be my tips.
Heidi Anderson, you're absolutely amazing. You sound like you're in a really good place now. It's a terrific read. Now it's been published by Big Sky Publishing. Where can people get a copy of it?
Well, you can get it at any bookstore. You can buy it online at, you know, many of the bookstores. So just Google Drunk on Confidence. There's loads in Big W. I'm sneaking around actually whilst I'm in Sydney signing books at random shops, and I'm going to be doing the same when I get back to Perth. So Yeah.
That is lovely. Well, I'm glad that we've got in first. Heidi Anderson, have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you for being here on the Catch Up with me on Radio 6PR.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
That is lovely. That is Heidi Anderson, former Perth radio host, author and coach. Her book is Drunk on Confidence, a memoir, Heidi Anderson. It really is a terrific read. As we know, so many people now, so many young ones, social media has been part and parcel of everyday life, but we are now, we're now getting people in their teens where they're more and more influenced by social media, and we've all got to play that responsible role in just letting them be happy with who they are, celebrating what they're doing. There is so much stigma around and so many pressures that it's difficult in society now, but she's nailed it perfectly in her book, and I thoroughly recommend it.